man. Day 3 of Shedeur Sanders versus Deshaun Watson, and it's safe to say Shedeur Sanders clearly won the day today. Deshaun Watson threw another interception, a bad pick. Deshaun Watson has not been good. Don't let them sugarcoat it and try to make it seem like it's been even or it's been close. No, Shedeur Sanders has thoroughly outplayed Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has 3 picks. Shedeur has none. In each of the 3 days, Shedeur Sanders had the throw of the day.
3 days into training camp, and the quarterback battle in Cleveland just got a lot less complicated. Because on day 3, Shedeur Sanders didn't just have a good practice, he had a statement practice. And Deshaun Watson, he had his worst one yet. This is the story of how a 5th-round pick, the guy nobody wanted, the guy who fell through an entire draft while cameras watched his face for signs of cracking, just walked into a Cleveland Browns practice field and made the highest-paid quarterback in franchise history look like he doesn't belong in the conversation anymore. Let's talk about what actually happened out there. 3 interceptions. That's what Deshaun Watson threw across 3 days of padless, controlled, low-pressure training camp work. Not against the live pass rush, not in a real game, in shorts and helmets, against a defense that's supposed to be easing quarterbacks into rhythm this time of year. And on day 3 alone, it wasn't even close. The ball was tipped, it hung in the air, and not 1, but 2 Browns defenders had a shot at it before it hit the ground. That's not bad luck. That's a decision-making problem. That's a quarterback who is 1 week into camp and already making throws that get read before they're even released. Now put Shedeur Sanders next to that. 0 interceptions, 3 straight days. And on each one of those 3 days, according to people who were actually standing on that field watching every single rep, Shedeur had the single best throw of practice. Not one of the best, the best, every day. On day 3, it was a dot to Denzel Boston that made the entire sideline erupt, a ball placed with the kind of confidence that doesn't look like a rookie trying not to mess up. It looked like a guy who already knows exactly who he is on that field. Then minutes later, another one, this time to Tylan Wallace, right on the money, no hesitation, no second guessing. And standing right there watching it happen, Berry, Jimmy Haslam, the 2 men who control this franchise's entire future, watching in person as the 5th-round pick outplayed the fully guaranteed $100+ million quarterback for the 3rd day in a row. Let that sink in for a second. Here's what the box score actually said after day 3 wrapped. Shedeur Sanders, 21 completions on 26 attempts, no touchdowns, but more importantly, no picks. Clean, efficient, mistake-free football. Deshaun Watson, 18 of 27, with an interception. Dillon Gabriel, 11 of 17, with a touchdown and a pick of his own. And that's the entire quarterback room laid bare in black and white 3 days into the most important training camp of this franchise's recent history. And look, 3 days doesn't decide a starting job. Everybody knows that. Camp battles are marathons, not sprints. But when the sample size keeps repeating itself, when the guy who's supposed to be the guaranteed starter keeps turning the ball over, and the guy who fell to pick 144 keeps delivering the clean, decisive throw of the day, that's not noise anymore. That's a pattern. And patterns are exactly what get people talking.
Each and every time, we got to get into the footage. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into the footage, man. We're not going to play no games. Deshaun Watson is turning his football over left and right. Take a look. Deshaun Watson is getting picked off left and right. If he didn't pick it,
because here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders. Nobody handed him anything. Not in this league, and honestly, not for most of his life. This is a kid who was QB1 material at every level he ever played, who put up numbers at Colorado that had draft analysts calling him a potential top 5 pick, and then watched on national television round after round as team after team passed on him. 5 rounds. That's not a slide, that's a fall. And it happened in front of cameras, in front of his family, in front of an entire country that was watching his face for a crack that never came. People forget how brutal that was. The commentary, the jokes, the endless think pieces about his attitude, about his father, about whether he was coachable, about whether the hype train had finally run into a wall of reality. He heard every single word of it, and instead of letting it break him, he showed up in Cleveland with something to prove, not to the league, but to himself. And that brings us to what's actually happening on that practice field right now, because this isn't just about interceptions and completion percentages. This is about a quarterback competition that the media insisted would be a formality. Deshaun Watson, the guaranteed money, the guy this franchise bet everything on, and Shedeur Sanders, the guy they said was just here to sit, learn, hold a clipboard, and wait his turn. Except Shedeur never got the memo that he was supposed to wait his turn quietly. Think about the psychology of that for a second. This is a kid who spent his entire life being told he was the best quarterback on the field in every gym, every practice, every big moment growing up. And then draft night happened, and for the first time in his life, the outside world told him something different. Told him he wasn't good enough. Told him 32 teams had a better option. That's the kind of moment that either shatters a young athlete's confidence permanently, or it becomes the exact fuel that drives everything that comes after it. And watching him on that field right now, it's pretty clear which one it turned out to be. Now let's talk about Todd Monken for a second, because his press conference after day 3 tells its own story. When asked directly about a sloppy sequence from the day before, Monken didn't dodge it. He called it exactly what it was, a reflection on him, on the coaching staff, on the entire offensive operation. 9 penalties, all pre-snap. 9. In an offense that's trying to be elite at the line of scrimmage, trying to build the kind of operational discipline that wins games in December and January, not just August. Monken didn't sugarcoat it. He said flat out, you can't call yourself elite on offense until you're elite at the cadence, until the operation is clean, until nobody's jumping, nobody's mistiming the snap, nobody doing a disservice to the guys up front who are trying to protect whoever's back there throwing the football. And that's the pressure cooker Shedeur Sanders is stepping into every single day. It's not just about outperforming Deshaun Watson on raw stats. It's about proving, rep after rep, that he can operate inside a system that Monken is building with surgical precision, install by install, day by day. Quick game on day 1, triangle reads on day 2, 3-level route concepts on day 3, 8 total installs before this offense even starts to look like what it's supposed to be in week 1. And through every single phase of that install so far, it's Shedeur who keeps delivering the answer key. There's something almost poetic about that. A rookie quarterback thrown into a brand new system, being asked to install 8 layers of an offense from scratch under a first-year play caller who's still figuring out his own rhythm as a head coach. And somehow, that rookie is the one who looks the most comfortable, not the 10-year veteran with the guaranteed contract. The rookie, the guy the whole league said would need a redshirt year just to be ready to compete.
Going to join up. You have him doing that. Meanwhile, you have Shedeur Sanders doing this. That is a dot, man. Denzel Boston, that's a dot. Shedeur Sanders putting on a show, man.
Now here's where the story gets even more interesting, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening with the whole city of Cleveland watching, a fan base that has been burned before, that has watched quarterback after quarterback come through this franchise and fail to be the answer. A fan base that remembers exactly what a guaranteed contract and a big name are worth when the on-field product doesn't match the price tag. And now here comes a kid from the 5th round doing what a lot of people privately hoped he'd do and publicly doubted he ever could. Cleveland fans have lived through this movie before. Different quarterback, same script. Big investment, big promises, and then years of watching the offense stall out on 3rd down while the front office scrambles for answers. So when a name like Shedeur Sanders starts trending on local radio, starts showing up in every fan conversation outside the stadium gates, it's not just hype for hype's sake. It's a fan base that's desperate for something real, something they can actually believe in again. And it's not staying local either. Clips from these practices are already spreading online, being dissected frame by frame by national analysts, former players, and everyday fans who weren't even paying attention to Brown's camp a week ago. That's what happens when a storyline like this starts building. It stops being a local Cleveland conversation and becomes a league-wide one. People who couldn't have told you Shedeur Sanders' college stats a month ago are now watching every rep he takes like it's appointment viewing. Before we go further, if this story's pulling you in, this is exactly the kind of week-by-week, rep-by-rep breakdown we live for on this channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss where this quarterback battle goes next, because it is far from over. Let's talk about the doubt for a second, because it's important to remember where the conversation was just a few months ago. Analysts were openly questioning whether Shedeur Sanders would even see meaningful reps this year, whether the fall in the draft was a red flag about his game, not just a market inefficiency, whether Deshaun Watson, even coming off injury, even after everything this franchise has been through with that contract, was simply too big an investment to bench for anybody, let alone a rookie. And now, 3 days into camp, that entire narrative is being tested in real time, on grass, in front of the men who make the actual decisions. There's a moment in Monken's presser that says more than any stat line could. A reporter asked him about a stretch late in practice where he pulled the offense aside, stopped the pace, and addressed something directly. Monken explained it wasn't frustration, it was about situational football, about getting reps to translate into real game situations, about making sure guys weren't just going through the motions, but actually processing the moment. That's the standard being set in Cleveland right now. Not talent alone, not arm strength alone. Processing, situational awareness, fundamentals, the stuff that doesn't show up on highlight reels, but shows up on Sundays when the game is on the line. And that's exactly where Shedeur's game has separated itself so far. It's not just that he's making splash throws, although he's clearly doing that too. It's that he's doing it clean. No turnovers, no forced decisions, no trying to do too much, just decisive, accurate, prepared quarterback play. 3 days in a row with the front office watching from the sideline every single time. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson is dealing with something much heavier than a bad stat line. He's dealing with the weight of a contract that reshaped this entire franchise's salary cap for years to come. Every incompletion, every interception, every mistimed read gets magnified through that lens. Fair or not, that's the reality of being the guy who was handed the largest guaranteed deal in NFL history and hasn't yet delivered on it. And right now, in real time, on the same practice field, a rookie who signed for a fraction of that money is outplaying him.
On the money, man. Shedeur Sanders is taking this job over. This is Shedeur Sanders to Tylan Wallace. Got Andrew Berry right there checking it out. Jimmy Haslam right there. Another dot. That one to Tylan Wallace. Shedeur Sanders absolutely put on a show today, guys. Absolutely put on a show. We'll go one more time on that Denzel Boston.
Complicated. You've got a franchise that bet the future on one quarterback, that restructured its entire cap sheet around him, that has every institutional incentive to make that bet pay off. And now you've got a rookie quietly forcing his way into a conversation that front office never wanted to have this early. That tension between what the organization committed to on paper and what's actually happening on the grass is exactly the kind of drama that doesn't need to be manufactured. It's just there every single day in the reps. There's also something bigger happening here that goes beyond wins and losses in August. Cleveland finally has its two best defensive difference makers back on the field. Denzel Boston making an impact from his very first day out there. Grant Delpit, the safety who helps get this whole defense aligned, back and already changing the tempo of practice. Monken himself said it. Those two showing up changes the level of competition this offense is facing every single day. Which means every throw Shedeur Sanders is completing right now isn't happening against a watered-down look. It's happening against real, veteran, playmaking defenders who are trying to take the ball away just as badly as he's trying to protect it. And he's still coming out on top. Think about what that actually means for a second. This isn't a rookie padding stats against scout team leftovers. This is a rookie going up against a defense that features actual starters, actual playmakers, guys who get paid to make quarterbacks look bad. In 3 days in a row, he's the one making them look average instead. So where does this go from here? Pads go on Monday. That's when this competition stops being about scheme installs and becomes about physicality, about contact, about whether a quarterback can operate under real pressure with real bodies flying at him. That's the next test. That's where some quarterbacks who look good in shorts start to unravel, and where some quarterbacks who've been doubted their whole lives finally get the stage to prove it wasn't a fluke.
Shedeur Sanders dominated between him and Deshaun, he absolutely won. Here it says day 3 of Browns camp is a wrap. Here's how all the QBs performed. Shedeur Sanders was 21 of 26, no touchdowns, no picks. Deshaun Watson, 18 of 27 with a pick. Dylan Gabriel, 11 of 17, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And Taylor Green, 4 of 5. So Shedeur Sanders has just played cleaner football. Each of the 3 days, he had the throw of the day. And Deshaun Watson, he's been turning the ball.
Because that's always been the next question mark hanging over Shedeur's game. Not the arm, not the accuracy, not the football IQ. Nobody's questioning that anymore. It's whether he can take a real hit, reset, and deliver the same kind of clean, decisive football when there's 400 pounds of pass rush bearing down on him instead of a clean pocket and shorts. Monday changes everything. Monday is when the story either gets louder or it gets a lot more complicated. Because here's what's true about Shedeur Sanders that people are only now starting to fully understand. He didn't get here by accident. He didn't fall into this opportunity. He earned every single rep of it by refusing to let a humiliating draft slide define him. By showing up to a locker room where he had to prove himself from day one, with veterans watching to see if the hype was real or if it was just noise. And so far, every single day of this camp, he's answering that question the only way that actually matters. On the field, in front of the people who decide his future. And it's not just the coaches and executives noticing either. Teammates talk. Locker rooms have a way of figuring out pretty quickly who's the real deal and who isn't, regardless of draft position or contract size. When a rookie starts earning that kind of quiet respect from grown men who've been in this league for years, that tells you something the stat sheet never will. 3 days, 0 interceptions, 3 straight days with the best throw on the practice field. That's not just a good camp, that's the sound of a quarterback competition that was never supposed to be close, suddenly looking a lot less settled than anyone in that front office expected it to be. And somewhere in Berea, behind closed doors, you have to imagine there are real conversations happening. Quiet ones, the kind that don't make headlines yet, but shape everything that comes after. Because when the guaranteed starter is turning the ball over and the 5th-round rookie is playing mistake-free, winning football, that's not a story front offices can just ignore for the sake of protecting an investment. Eventually, the tape has to win the argument. That's the part that makes this whole situation so fascinating to watch unfold. Football, at the end of the day, is a results business. Contracts matter, draft capital matters, reputations matter, right up until the tape says something different. And right now, 3 days running, the tape keeps saying the same thing. And if day 3 was any indication, this is only getting started.